In the summer of 1944, a United States Army Air Forces pilot climbed into his cockpit carrying equipment his own government had issued him that morning. Standard kit, signed off by his commanding officer. And if he had walked into any American police station with that same kit today, he would have been arrested on the spot. Not because the laws changed around him, because what it took to survive that war, what the United States government decided was necessary, crossed lines that peacetime will never permit again. I have spent a long time digging through declassified United States Army Air Forces kit manifests, National Archives escape and evasion reports, and wartime medical supply records. What I found was not just history. It was a portrait of how far a government will go when losing is not an option. Number 6 on this list is the one that stayed with me, because it was not issued to make pilots more dangerous to the enemy. It was issued to make them dangerous to themselves, as a last resort. And the man who decided to hand it out did so because he believed that was the more humane option. 12 items, every one of them illegal today. Let's get into it. Number 12. The Silk Escape Map. Paper makes noise. Paper gets wet. Paper dissolves in your hands when you have been crawling through occupied France in the rain for 6 hours. Someone in British intelligence sat down and thought through that problem from first principles. The answer was silk, or more precisely, a rayon acetate blend printed by John Waddington Limited, the same British company that made Monopoly sets and famously hid escape maps inside wartime board games for prisoners of war. These maps were issued to Allied pilots from the United States, the Royal Air Force, and the Royal Canadian Air Force, and printed on both sides. One face showed France and Germany, the other covered Eastern Europe because they did not know where you would come down. Silk was chosen because it did not rustle, could be compacted into the palm of a hand, would not disintegrate when wet, and could be sewn into the linings of uniforms to prevent discovery until required. Every one of these maps was stamped restricted. That was not a formality. Possessing or transmitting a classified United States government document without authorization is a federal crime under the Espionage Act today. The map in a downed pilot's jacket was classified material he wore into combat. Number 11. The Concealed Button Compass. You've just parachuted into a German-occupied field. A patrol will find you within the hour, search every inch of you, and put you in a camp. You already planned for this. Button compasses were the most common escape compasses issued to air crews in World War II, under 1 inch in diameter, issued alongside a silk map and a hacksaw blade. Many pilots sewed them into the fly or waistband of their trousers so they would not be found during an enemy search. The U.S. government issued a compass designed specifically to survive a thorough search by a trained enemy soldier. They thought about where a man's hands go when he's nervous and being patted down. They sewed the answer into the fabric. Escape compasses were hidden in buttons, in clothing linings, and inside innocent-looking everyday objects. Some were magnetized razor blades that pointed north when floated on water. Deliberately concealing items and clothing to evade security screening today is a federal offense under aviation security law. The entire design philosophy of the button compass, built to fool a search, is what makes it illegal now. Number 10. The Concealed Hacksaw Blade. Tucked into the same rubberized escape purse as the silk map and compass was something that sounds almost comically simple, until you think about why it was there. Each escape and evasion money purse contained a miniature brass compass, foreign currency, and a small metal hacksaw blade. Not for woodwork, but for cutting through the bars of a prisoner of war camp. They issued it to every pilot flying over occupied Europe, because they genuinely expected some percentage of these men to end up behind wire, and they wanted them to have a fighting chance. The small size of these items allowed them to be concealed anywhere on the body. Many airmen sewed them into the waistband of their trousers specifically to survive a capture search. That word, concealed, is what makes this illegal today. The TSA classifies hacksaw blades as prohibited items on commercial aircraft. Deliberately hiding one in your clothing to get through a security checkpoint is a criminal offense under Title 49 of the United States Code, Section 46505. The entire purpose of the World War II version was to hide it from exactly that kind of search. Number 9. The Gold Escape Kit. Imagine holding a bar of soap. Same size, same weight, sealed in black rubber, except it does not contain soap. Known as barter kits, these were issued by the U.S. military to pilots and paratroopers during World War II. Inside were gold coins, rings, pendants, and watches, chosen not for sentimental value, but for their ability to buy safety. A pilot could bribe enemy officials, barter with locals for food and shelter, or secure safe passage back to friendly territory. Each kit was serialized and assigned to one individual, who was expected to return it if unused. Read that last part again. The government expected you to hand the gold back. Atlantic theater kits contained approximately 9/10 of a troy ounce of gold, a 20-franc coin, a 10-franc coin, a sovereign, 2 half-sovereigns, and 3 gold band 9-carat rings. Here's what most people miss. Under the Gold Reserve Act of 1934, active throughout the entire war, American civilians were prohibited from owning gold coins. A civilian carrying this kit was committing a federal crime with every step. The government exempted their own pilots from a law they simultaneously enforced on the public. And using gold to bribe foreign officials today violates the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. The specific intended use of this kit is still federally prohibited. Number 8. The false passport photos. Downed pilot survival kits included 6 identical small portrait photographs, sized precisely to fit standard European identity documents, with the pilot photographed in civilian clothes, a plain coat, a basic tie, nothing military, nothing American. Written on the back of every set, in pen, the words, "Escape Pictures." The United States Army photographed its pilots in civilian disguise before their missions. Not as an emergency measure, as a standard kit. Alongside the compass and the chocolate, there were 6 photographs of a man pretending to be someone he wasn't, ready to be handed to a French resistance contact the moment he hit the ground. Some of those contacts were teenagers. Some were farmers. Some of them died for those photographs. Producing, possessing, or using forged identity documents today is a federal felony under 18 U.S.C. Section 1543. It is punishable by up to 25 years in federal prison. 6 photographs, 25 years each. Number 7. The morphine syringe. This is not a tablet. This is a metal tube, roughly the size of a toothpaste sample, with a hypodermic needle folded against the side. You uncapped it, jabbed it through your flight suit into your thigh, and squeezed. The standard USA AF first aid kit, per the pilot's information file dated October 1943, included 2 morphine tartrate tubes. Fighter pilots carried a compact parachute packet version with 1 morphine tartrate syringe, designed to be self-administered if wounded. They wore it on a cord around their neck, on the body, in the cockpit, every mission. After using it, pilots were told to pin the empty syringe to their collar, so the next medic who found them would know how much morphine was already in their system and would not accidentally administer a fatal second dose. That detail alone tells you everything about the world these men lived in. The instructions assumed you might be unconscious and alone, and the note on your collar might be the only thing keeping a well-meaning stranger from killing you. Morphine is Schedule 2. The syringe, needle and all, worn around the neck of a 22-year-old, is a federal felony to possess without a prescription today. Number 6. The L-pill. This is the one I mentioned at the start. The L-pill, L for lethal, was an oval capsule the size of a pea, a thin-walled glass ampoule covered in brown rubber and filled with concentrated potassium cyanide. The bearer would bite down on it if captured. Brain death followed within minutes. Select U.S. military aircrews attached to OSS operations were issued these capsules to facilitate rapid suicide if captured, to prevent interrogation or torture. The man who authorized this was William Donovan, head of the OSS, predecessor to the CIA. He believed some missions were so sensitive that capture was worse than death. Not for the pilot. For everyone else the pilot knew. He was not wrong, and he issued it anyway, because he thought it was the more humane option. Possessing potassium cyanide for use as a suicide device is illegal under federal hazardous substances law today. Distributing it in this form is treated as distribution of a chemical weapon. The small rubber pill in a pilot's collar, his last option, is now a federal crime to carry. Number 5. The High Standard HDM. Between October 1943 and March 1944, 2,600 high-standard HDM pistols with integral suppressors were manufactured for the OSS. The suppressor reduced the report to as little as 20 decibels, roughly the sound of rustling leaves. A normal gunshot is around 160 decibels. This weapon was quieter than a whispered conversation. OSS Chief Bill Donovan demonstrated it to President Roosevelt inside the Oval Office, firing it into a sandbag while Roosevelt was dictating a letter. The president did not hear it. Donovan walked over and handed him the spent cartridge. Roosevelt reportedly said, "Bill, you're the only man I know who gets things done without telling me until afterward." The OSS issued suppressed high-standard HDMs to operatives throughout Western Europe, North Africa, and the Pacific Theater. Pilots on missions attached to the OSS carried them as a last resort secondary weapon. An unregistered suppressor is a federal felony under the National Firearms Act today. Up to 10 years in prison and up to $250,000 in fines. The weapon fired in the White House would earn the man carrying it a decade behind bars. Number 4. The E-17 Survival Flask. I want to be specific here, because this isn't just a pill, it's a physical object you can hold and photograph. The E-17 Emergency Sustenance Kit was a semi-transparent plastic flask supplied by Sears and Roebuck, sealed with a wire bail locking system. Its documented contents included Hershey's chocolate bars, bouillon powder, fishing hooks and line, a compass, matches, a hacksaw blade, a sewing kit, and benzodrine tablets. The amphetamine sat in the same compartment as the chocolate, filed under survival equipment. Not medicine, survival equipment. By 1943, a package of benzodrine pills had its place in the emergency kit of every American bomber. A survey of European theater fighter pilots showed around 15% frequently used them. Benzodrine, amphetamine sulfate, is Schedule II today. The flask, carried onto a commercial flight with its original contents intact, results in federal drug charges. The entire kit as issued is illegal to bring on a civilian aircraft. Number 3. The Atabrine Tropical Kit. Malaria put more American servicemen in the hospital in the Pacific than combat did. Not marginally more. Significantly more. Pacific Theater survival kits contained Atabrine tablets for malaria prevention alongside insect repellent, water purifying tablets, salt tablets, snakebite kits, and sulfaguanidine for dysentery. The Atabrine itself yellowed the skin visibly. That part was real. The rumored impotence was medically false. But the false rumor spread faster than the truth, and men stopped taking their medication voluntarily. NCOS and medics had to stand in the mess line and physically watch each soldier swallow his tablet. Not ask, watch. Atabrine, also called quinacrine, is not FDA approved for human use in the United States. It was withdrawn from the civilian market and never reapproved. Distributing or administering it today as a drug treatment violates the federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. The kit that helped control the most devastating disease outbreak in the Pacific Campaign is now federally illegal to issue. Number 2. The Blood Chit. You've crashed in enemy territory. No radio, no crewmates. You reach into your flight jacket and pull out a piece of cloth. When the United States entered World War II in December 1941, flight crew survival kits included blood chits printed in 50 different languages, marked with an American flag and promising a financial reward from the United States government for the safe return of a pilot. Many had theirs sewn directly into the back of their flight jackets. These were official IOUs from the United States government. They promised a reward to anyone who came to a downed airman's aid. Some records surrounding World War II blood chits remain restricted today because the families of civilians who sheltered Allied airmen in occupied territories could still face danger if certain identities became public. There are people alive right now whose grandparents risked everything and whose names still cannot be fully told. A private civilian today carrying a document that purports to make financial commitments on behalf of the United States government and presenting it to a foreign national would be committing impersonation of a federal officer under 18 U.S.C. Section 912. The cloth in the pilot's jacket was government policy. In your jacket today, it is a federal crime. Number 1. The radium dial wristwatch and cockpit instruments. There is something almost poetic about the fact that the instruments keeping World War II pilots alive in the dark were quietly trying to kill them. During World War II, radium dials and gauges allowed pilots to fly at night without cockpit lights, helping them avoid being spotted by enemy forces below. The luminous paint that made this possible was radium-based. It coated altimeters, compasses, airspeed indicators, and the wristwatches issued to aircrew as standard equipment. In total darkness at 20,000 feet, those glowing dials were the difference between controlled flight and spatial disorientation. What the pilots were not told, because it was not fully understood yet, was what they were being exposed to. Research by the University of Northampton found that a collection of 30 antique radium dial watches produced radon concentrations 134 times greater than recommended safe levels when kept in a space the size of a typical box room. 3 watches in poor condition individually exceeded the threshold at which remediation would be recommended. These were the same watches pilots wore strapped to their wrists for missions that lasted 8, 10, or 12 hours. Radium-226 was commonly used in World War II-era aircraft instrumentation, including luminous dials and gauges. Radium-226 is now regulated by the U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission. Transporting, distributing, or handling radioactive materials, including radium-226, without an NRC license is a federal offense under the Atomic Energy Act today. The glowing watch on a pilot's wrist, standard issue, signed for, and worn every mission, would require a federal radioactive materials license to legally possess and transport in 2024. The pilots who wore them had no idea. Neither did the women who painted the dials, licking their brushes to a fine point to get the numerals just right. Some of them died for it. The pilots flew on, eyes on the glowing instruments, hands on the stick, trusting the light. Most of these 12 items were not even controversial when they were issued. They were just what you needed to survive, and the government gave them to you without apology because the alternative was losing the war. What this list is really about is the gap between what was necessary then and what is permitted now. That gap is not a criticism of either era. It is just the distance between a world at total war and the world that came after it. These men did not ask whether their escape kit was legal. They flew the mission, carried the kit, and came home if they were lucky.